Did you have a good holiday? Yes. Things went well? Did you do what we did at our house? Where we sat around and ate, and ate, ate a little bit more. And then we sat and talked. That's a good thing to do, isn't it? Do people sit and talk anymore? I don't know. At our house, yeah, we text. I don't know. Even this year, our grandkids came down. We had, how many? Was it like almost 20 people in our house and something like that. And our grandkids even put their instruments, their devices aside, so then we could talk. And we would talk about things long ago. You know, they've done studies that say if kids and if you know the history, know your history, your family, you do better in life. You have some reference points, good and bad. You know, we've got some bad ones and some good ones, right? And it was interesting to sit around and talk about all these old stories. In fact, I remember as we were sitting there on New Year's, our kids from Asheville were just about getting ready to leave, and we started telling stories about genealogies. Our daughter, Julianne, is doing some genealogy stuff, and the kids actually stopped and came back into the room. They wanted to hear about great-great-grandma and great-great-grandpa. And names, like my great-grandma who lived in 96, her name was Lacey. Isn't that a pretty name? You just think of pretty things. And she was a neat old lady. Used to make me hoe her collards, though. I was thinking about her yesterday when we were eating collard greens. So I got to go back and visit and see how long that row was. It was at least a mile long, I know. Those are good stories, aren't they? It made me think, in our verse today, we hear Jesus has come to seek and save that which was lost. And we know that, don't we? He has that mission. But what do we know about Jesus before that moment in his ministry? You know, if you go over to Luke 2, if you still have your Bibles there, look at Luke chapter 2, verse 52. $252. Sounds like a new car or something. 252. Jesus increased in what? Wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. What does that mean? You know? Yeah, people liked him. He grew up and he was maturing physically and healthy. But what do we know about the life of Jesus when he was younger, living in Nazareth? You know, there's nothing. It just, this verse and a couple of little innuendos. And so you wonder, I do, what did Jesus do? Desire of Ages gives us some insights. If you have that book, go read it. If you don't have it, come see me. I want you to have that book. Greatest book on the life of Christ. Did Jesus run around town, you know, playing on his phone? He was a good carpenter. His dad was a good carpenter. I think he did his work perfectly, and he was careful. But beyond that, what happens in the life of a child growing up in a city where people asked, oh, Jesus is from Nazareth? What was the question? Can any good thing come out of Nazareth? So Jesus lived in a place, young people especially, he lived in a place that was a challenge. Every day he was confronted with opportunities, with temptations to leave the path of God. And I think Jesus probably did the same thing as a child when he was older. Now hopefully we don't repeat all the same mistakes when we get older, right? Amen. Your New Year's resolutions this year, don't repeat what you did when you were 10 years old and you ate the whole chocolate cake at New Year's Eve, right? Don't do that anymore. Jesus probably went around town, and there was the little girl who was blind. And Jesus went over and just ignored her, or he went over and spent some time with his friend in Nazareth who was having a challenge and said, you know, well, you couldn't say look, right? The birds. And he would describe what that song was like. Don't you think Jesus did that? Or a friend who was seen on the street whose limbs were not quite formed just right, And Jesus would say, where are you going today? Let me help you. And somewhere I read, someone imagined that when Jesus got a little bit older and began to be fully aware of his ministry, and I like to think this could be true, Jesus might have said in his heart and his mind, when I begin my ministry, I'm going to come back over and help this person. And when Jesus began his ministry, he was baptized and he went through the wilderness. And as he went around, all over Israel, do you suppose in his mind he remembered friends in Nazareth or maybe someone he heard about and went back to that place? I think so. He had the choice, didn't he? That gives me encouragement as I think about it, though. What am I doing right now? Do I need Jesus in my life? Absolutely. It's a hard time right now, isn't it? I mean, it's good some days. We live in a country, we're greatly blessed. If we have a hard time, we call every doctor, any doctor we want, and they'll fix us. Or try. Food, I don't know about you, it wasn't so much a matter of what to eat, was which thing to eat first. We don't run out. But in that sense, it's not so hard, but there's turmoil and troubles. We have aches and pains that get accumulated. Things that you don't know about come. Accidents that we hear about. People still die in this world. But Jesus comes to us right now, and he sends his angels, and he comforts us. He says, be strong, don't be scared. I'll be back. I think he told his friends that there in Nazareth. It's hard to be crippled, especially a child. It's hard to be blind. Some of those other diseases, even some of the older people, I think he brought them comfort, but he said, don't worry, I'll be back one day and I'm going to heal you. Jesus says the same thing to us today, doesn't he? He says, you're down there, I'm up here, but don't get discouraged. Don't give up. It's hard. You're fighting some battles. You're growing older. Other things happen, but you still got some joys. Most of all, remember, one of these days I'm going to come back and heal you. Now, healing is good, isn't it? Do you like that? I like healing. Do you know what's better than healing? Resurrection. Resurrection is better. Why doesn't Jesus resurrect so much? Well, he may be doing it, and we just haven't heard about it yet. That's a possibility. But I do get frustrated sometimes. You think about the little girl or, Jesus' good friend there in Bethany that he resurrected. Now, would you like to be resurrected and know that you still have to live and die again? You would witness for Jesus either way. But what Jesus has in store for us is the ultimate fix. He says, when I come back the next time, when I resurrect you this time, the best fix possible, there will be no more pain or sorrow or death. That's the great news, isn't it? God still has a plan. Jesus is still ministering to us, and he says, be strong, don't be scared, hang on. He may heal us now, he may not. We may go to sleep and rest for a while, but that's all right. We're resting in the arms of Jesus. He knows where we are, wherever we are, alive or at rest. And he says, when I come back the next time, I'll keep my promise to fix things as they've never been fixed since you've known about it. You see, he used to know about this, right? He knows what it's like. And he can't wait to bring us back to that perfect situation when there'll be no more pain or sorrow or suffering or death. So that's the good story about our best friend and our greatest relative, Jesus. He keeps doing the same thing for us, healing us and blessing us and preparing us for full restoration. Don't you want to be there? What's the next best choice? There isn't a good second. And it's so far down the list, it's not even on the list. Let's keep this verse in Luke in mind. Jesus came to seek and to save the lost, but he grew in favor with God and man. We grow in favor with man and with God as we trust and follow Jesus. Jesus gave us one great promise. He said to his disciples on that night before the crucifixion, he said, I'm celebrating this supper with you, Passover, the sign of my salvation. I'm celebrating that with you one more time. Now what you need to do is keep doing this until I come back. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to celebrate Jesus' sacrifice and hope and promise that he's given us. If you're a visitor with us, we invite you to join in the Lord's Supper, and we also do foot washing. We invite you to join that as well. You're welcome to be a part of it. We have 3 areas set up for the foot washing service, which we'll do before the Lord's Supper. We have a place behind me here in the rooms through this door or through this door that's set up for the ladies and those who don't want to climb stairs or walk far around. There's the section there that you can go. Downstairs in what we call the junior room, if you go out this door and down the steps, you'll see a sign that says Primaryville, go to the next room. That's the junior room. That's for couples. If you want to celebrate the foot washing as a couple, you're welcome to go there. And then in the main part of the basement, just immediately below us here, there's a place for the men set up. So we'll go to those areas for the foot washing, and then we'll come back to this room for the Lord's Supper. When you come back to this room, watch on the end of the pews. You'll see some little signs that say reserved. If you would leave those seats open, then the deacons will be able to service the emblems easier. All right. We'll be dismissed for the foot washing. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes.